to sign the 2021-2022 Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire by adopting the Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire Resolution and submit a copy of the questionnaire to report CPAs and business advisors, the board's independent auditor. We have a motion. Mr. Duplantis, seconded by Mr. Plaisance. Board discussion. Any public discussion? All right, we'll go ahead and vote.
Oh. Yeah, that one, the mouse is not working on that. No,
she's
I
voted.
voted.
You voted?
Okay. Maybe so. Can you survive it up?
Mr. Harrell, did you vote?
No, sir, I haven't gotten in yet.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yay.
All right. Motion passed. Item B, to consider recommended changes to the land and facilities manager job description. Ms. LaFawn? Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir. The changes that we're making are relative to the qualifications, not to the job description or what we're going to expect the person to do. The qualifications previously required a bachelor's degree. The recommendation before you tonight is that the bachelor's degree will be preferred. And then we added 5 years construction management experience, knowledge of building codes and permitting requirements, knowledge of state procurement law, experience estimating construction projects preferred, able to become accredited with DEQ as an inspector for asbestos within the first year of employment, able to become qualified as a government pesticide applicator within the first year of employment, and of course, strong leadership and communication skills. So those are the qualifications that this person must possess, and we'd like to advertise this position once the board approves it, pending some personnel changes that will come within the district.
Do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Tita, seconded by Mr. Bernard. Any public discussion? Any board discussion?
Yeah. With the added responsibilities, will there be any change in the salary range?
No, sir. I don't view the change that we're putting before you in terms of the qualifications as added responsibilities. I think we're really just qualifying what the job has always required of a person.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Any other comments? Mr. Plaisance?
When I first got on the board, I told Mr. Evans that he has the best job in the school system, except Hurricane Ida. And I think he has the worst job in the system now, 15. So it's a tough job. I wish someone the best of luck. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment? We'll vote. All right. Item C, to consider authorizing employee stipend pays utilizing ESSER funding for the 22-23 fiscal year as presented by Ms. LaFawn Ortiz, Business Manager.
Yes, sir, thank you. As you know, last year we presented 2 stipends during the year to our employees, all of our full-time employees, utilizing the ESSER funds. We are proposing very similar stipends for the 2022-23 year, both in November of 22 and again in May of 23. With the employees who are full-time certified or professional employees hired before October 1 and still active on payroll through the distribution date of November 2022, they would receive a $1,000 retention stipend. Likewise, full-time support employees hired during that same period of time would receive a $500 retention stipend. And included this time would be also our active part-time employees who are hired before October 1, active on payroll through the distribution date of November 2022, and they would receive a $300 stipend. And that would be based upon the criteria established for the definition of a part-time employee. And you can see that outlined for you below. That would be employees hired outside of a temporary or an ancillary work contract. Anybody outside of a long-term substitute authorization. Part-time employees would work an average of at least 4 hours per day or a minimum of 20 hours per week. And then they would be assigned to a position which is considered permanent. And this would include part-time employees such as our child nutrition technicians and the child nutrition custodian. Also would include our print shop clerks and our IT assistants. Excluded from the definition of part-time employees would be those employees who are before and after school child care workers. They work for individual school programs and are paid as such. Tutors who tutor students after school, and bus monitors ride the buses after school as well, before and after school. Part-time bus attendants, pandemic clerks, and all substitutes. Any other employees who are hired under a temporary contract or an ancillary work contract would also be excluded. For the November stipend, the estimated cost is $2,019,354. Then again in May, we would like to use the same criteria that we used last year in the May stipend, both for our certified and professional employees at $2,000 per stipend, and for full-time support employees, a $1,000 retention stipend. And those stipends would be prorated on a quarterly basis over the school year so that those employees who worked a majority of the quarter in any one of those 4 quarters would receive a portion of that stipend. And again, those full-time employees must be active on payroll during each of those quarters to qualify for that stipend. Also, we're introducing that stipend again for our permanent part-time employees, meeting that same definition of a part-time employee. And we're offering a $600 stipend, or we would like to offer a $600 stipend, prorated for the quarters that they worked, also based on an average of 20 hours per week worked during that quarter. And if you approve these stipends for May, the total estimated cost is $3,888,708.
Do I hear a motion? Ms. Petita, seconded by Mr. Plazo. Would you explain for the public and maybe those who don't know what ESSER funding is, and that it is non-recurring funding?
Correct. This is funding that was issued by the federal government in response to the COVID pandemic. They actually made 3 separate authorizations, with the final funding ending the term of the use of those funds ending in September of 2024. So the portion of those funds that we have set aside for retention stipends is allowed in that particular funding source, which is the only way we would be able to offer these particular stipends.
Any public comment? Any board discussion or comment?
So if everything, all the stipulations are met, the total funding and the May funding will result in $3,000 for regular employees and $1,500 for the part-time. No.
whatever.
Yeah, support staff. Potential of non-contract.
Any other questions or comments, Ms. Thomas?
I have a comment. I want to thank Superintendent, and I also want to thank Ms. LaPont and her team for working on this. I had a part-time worker come to me, and they were, wondering why they didn't get any of the funding. And we do have hard-working part-time people here who's very loyal to this school board, and they just felt they should have had some of it also because they don't get any benefits. And so I just want to thank y'all. I appreciate you for actually doing this, and I know they will too. Thank you.
If there are no other comments, we'll vote. All right, motion passed unanimously. Item D, to consider a request from Jimmy Uncalade, Federal Program Director for supplemental pay for the parent and family engagement school level contact personnel for be engaged activities and take appropriate action. Is Uncalade here?
She's not here.
Okay.
Recently, the Department of Education, the State Department of Education, has developed a new initiative called Be Engaged, which is to encourage engagement of the parents and family in the education of their children who are in the schools in the state. As a result, there are a lot of new requirements that our school level personnel will have to put in place to meet the guidelines for this new engagement program. So on their behalf, Ms. Ankalad has requested that we add a supplemental pay to the school level personnel in the form of an indexed supplement at 0.0175, which aligns with the supplements that are paid to our club sponsors, many of our club sponsors, such as yearbook and some of those things, dance teams, things like that that are in the school. The cost, however, will be to the general fund in the amount of $44,500. And since this was not originally included in our general fund budget for this year, we're asking that you provide approval to add this supplemental pay for those school level personnel for the Be Engaged initiative.
Is there a motion? Mr. Adams? Motion by Mr. Adams. Is there a second by Mr. Plaisance? Any public discussion? Any board discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. This is one person, and they're gonna be district-wide? Just so
There's
this,
one person at a particular school.
Each site is going to have one of these folks assigned to it to manage the school's criminal engagement activities. So the state is now mandated that each school stand up PFE chairperson. You have to have, and if you look at the, I think, fourth paragraph on the attachment, you've got to manage and schedule events, manage and schedule incentivize parental feedback, manage the PIMS points. I don't know if you've downloaded that yet, but the schools are all doing these things. And if you show up at a pep rally or a thing, you get points through PIMS. And so somebody at each school has to manage this, this thing that is now a mandate. And so the $44,544 is being divided by 29 schools to give to one individual to manage each of these things at each of those schools.
One other point that I failed to mention is that this would go into effect in January.
At one time, part of that could be funded with federal funds. I don't guess what happened.
She did not have a funding source that the grant would allow in this year. Going forward, it may be something that she can apply for through federal programs, but this year she did.
That's not, the reason she cannot use the federal funds is because it is a state mandate. If it's a state mandate, federal funds cannot pay for it, has to be supplemented.
Now, since the state mandated, do they pay for it?
Come
No,
on
sir.
now.
No, and I'd like to speak to that because they are saying the school has to do this. They're
Well,
not
there was a
mandating.
provision in the law that required that.
They're not mandating you pay anyone any more money. Just do these things. But from a pragmatic standpoint, as a principal, I've got to assign all of these duties to someone else. How do I do that and not compensate them for what would be clearly a large block of their time that they're going to have to contribute to? So that's why the legislator would tell you, we didn't give you any unfunded mandates. Just do all this extra stuff.
Right.
So basically, what does that break down to per school, per individual cost?
It is indexed. So if you take an average teacher salary of 45,000 times $780.
Wow, we get a good deal there. I guarantee you that.
Any other discussion or comments from the board? All right, we'll vote. All right, motion passed unanimously. Item E, to consider authorizing advertisement proposals for E-rate wide area network WAN and internet access service. Is that you or Mr. Byers? Mr. Byers.
Yes, good evening. I'm requesting permission to advertise the proposals. This is for E-rate eligibility. This will be for wide area network and also internet access services. Our current contract is expiring, so we definitely need to go back out to RFP to ensure we can continue these services.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Duplantis, second by Mr. Plaisance. Any public comment? Any board comment? All right, we'll vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item F, to request permission to advertise for formal proposals for access control and surveillance services. I see Mr. Byers standing, so it must be her again.
I'm also requesting permission to advertise for proposals for access control and surveillance systems. This will also be district-wide. Our current contract expires in December, so we're looking and seeking for new contracts and new services.
Do we hear a motion? Mr. Teeter, is there a second? Mr. Adams. Any public comment? Any board comment, discussion? All right, we'll vote. Motion carries unanimously. Item G, to review amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement between the LaFouche Parish School District and Ritter Consulting Engineers Limited and take appropriate action. Mr. Rice.
So this is another contract I've brought a few to the board for review and approval in regards to FEMA OSEP compliance. This is another one for Ritter Engineering. This is also required for the not to exceed clause for time and materials. So I'm requesting that the board review and approve this amendment, and it'll be for the not to exceed clause as required by FEMA.
Thank you. Do I hear, is there a motion? Mr. Plaisance, there's a second. Ms. Petita, any public comment? Any board discussion? All right, we'll vote. Motion carries unanimously. We're going to item 3, reports. A, to receive monthly budget to actual report for the period through August 2022. Ms. Ortiz.
Yes, this report covers the two major funds, the general fund and the 1995 sales tax salary restricted fund. The third major fund is the 2021 construction fund, which is reported at the Land and Facilities Management Committee by our accountant, Ms. Chasson. So this is your first budget report, budget to actuals report for the 2023 budget. So there's not a whole lot of activity to report in there yet. But in the general fund, you can see that we have received 12.5% of the revenues to date and expended 8.8% of the expenditures. Of course, there are no budget overages at this point because we're just getting started with this budget cycle. We have no tax collections to date up to this year due to the monies that we received in July and August going back to fiscal year 22. However, we have received $12.9 million in our MFP funding, which falls right on schedule with what we were anticipating. The 1995 sales tax salary restricted fund analysis, as you can see, there's no, when you look at the report, there is no activity for that fund yet. That will come in September, so that report will change for next year. For next month, excuse me. All of the figures that are on your report, quite a few. If you have any questions about those, feel free to contact me and I'll be glad to answer them. Are there any questions now?
Any questions? All right. We'll move on to item B, to receive the financial report on Hurricane Ida response and recovery relief.
Yes, sir. The sum of everything that we've expended to date on Hurricane Ida is $59.7 million. We've also obligated an additional $22.7 million through contracts, most of which you see there now are contracts for some of the permanent work that's going on in our schools. The total of $82.4 million. If you look at the bottom of the report, I'll provide for you the report that we sent to Hancock Whitney Bank in relation to the hurricane loan that we secured. The total reimbursement request to FEMA is standing at $49.2 million. FEMA has obligated $47.3 million of that amount, and those claims are currently under GOSEP review. Yes, so we actually have no revenue received to date. However, those claims, those first claims, are in what they call their final stages. Yes, GOSEP. Any questions on the hurricane report?
Do we anticipate coming in within the money we've already borrowed, or do we think we'll need to?
But I do believe that she and I are optimistic we won't have to go through the second tranche. But, that's all dependent on a lot of unknowns. Any time frame of 4 to 6 weeks is what we were told. 4 to 6 weeks. But again,
Pretty decent time frame for GOSEP.
I'm very cautious to give you the same numbers I've been given because there's frequently turned out to be and it's not I believe that our consultants are giving us their absolute best information, but they are not in control of when we get it out. Ultimately, it's the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, and they're on their own timeline. But we could get it as early as 3 weeks, it could be as late as 8.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the Hurricane Ida funding and financing? If not, meeting's adjourned.